well aware of it, as well as this town is hurting, and the budget that we have inherited, that we are in trouble with. We are working diligently, and no one is going to be happy, including you, when this budget is finally proposed. The preliminary budget right now, if you look at it, it's ugly. And every single department head has been challenged to do everything possible to cut their budgets to a bare bone. I find it almost insulting, Rod, that you are challenging us on our expenditures without thinking that we have not fully investigated everything that we are approving.
Well, let me ask you this then. We've got about a 20% increase in part-town tax, is that correct?
The 20% increase of what?
Part-town tax. Not your whole town, your part-town, which most of us live in.
Where'd you get that percentage, Roy? I don't understand what you're asking.
I heard, somebody told me that we were going 19 or 20%.
Okay, right now it's 24%, but it's a tentative budget.
Oh, boy.
24%. But you also have to realize you've been in government long enough to know about revenues and expenditures and fund balances.
That does not include any additional costs for garbage and sewage and things like that, is it?
No, it does not. You're correct.
That has nothing to do.
You're correct.
We have not even gotten to our special district yet.
Yeah. Another thing that disappoints me a great deal. The other day I came into a budget meeting. Everybody sat around the table, not a microphone there. I got up and left because I couldn't hear anything. Now that's to me is not right.
Right. We apologize for that. And the rest of our budget meetings are going to be held in this room with microphones so that all can hear.
Okay. I'll take your word on that. Okay, folks, I'm just a concerned citizen. I haven't raised the rent in my apartments for 5 years. I'm going to have to jump them pretty good now. I mean, I'm very concerned.
You are as concerned as every single one of us in this room and all of us who sit up in this board.
Okay, let me ask you a question. How many cell phones are out there? Takes little to make big.
We don't. We have one pager, I believe, we pay for.
No, we have seven cell phones, Roy.
How many?
7. And I believe years ago, I think we had 16 to 18 cell phones, so it was reduced down to 7.
You have more than that, I know.
No, we don't.
No, we pay for, we may have more because everyone has their own personal cell phone. But.
Do they get reimbursed for that?
No.
No, we do not.
They use their own phones?
Yes.
Good. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of the citizens.
As well as we are, because we are taxpayers of this town as well.
I'm worried about this town with a 20% increase. You're going to have to pay houses for sale. I was in office in '88 when we had a slight depression. And we had every other house in this town had a for sale sign on it. We're going to have the same thing come January. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Lord.
That worked out well.
We are in public input. If anyone would like to stand up and speak.
Mr. Supervisor, can I explain one thing? Roy brought up a good point, how when we buy trucks, they're extra. We don't go for quotes because between Jody and Joe and myself, we buy off of either a state contract bid or a county contract bid, which the state and the county have already done that work for us. We buy off the cheapest price truck or the cheapest vehicle or a piece of equipment that's already out there. So we don't have to put it out for bid. The state or the county has already done that for us. That's why when we come to you and say we need to buy run a crusher, topsoil, or a new vehicle, we don't give you other quotes because that is the state bid. That's the state bid price. So we don't have to get quotes. That's already the cheapest price out there.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris, are you forbidden from doing, say somebody in Oswego had a truck that you could use, and it was real cheap, would you be allowed to buy that without going through the bidding process?
It would be New York State, it's for the whole New York State.
You can't take a deal on the side, even though it's a great deal.
Yeah, bid it out then.
Then you gotta put it out bid.
That's
No competitive bid.
Then you gotta go to a competitive bid.
As long as you have a set specification, you can go to anybody you want, but you're gonna work off of the specification that the state has or county has, and if somebody wants to come in lower than that in Oswego County or wherever, yes, you can entertain that, but it has to meet the spec that the state's already gone out on.
So you can't take advantage of a super deal of somebody.
No.
It's too bad.
Unless it matches exactly.
That's too bad. Too bad you can't pass some law, get around that. But my comment I want to make is I know you're trying hard to chop everything down, but if you would go into your meetings and play a little mind game with yourself and say, it's impossible to raise our taxes. It's just, for some whatever reason, you can't raise the taxes. What are we going to do to survive? Would you go extinct? Well, if you ask yourself that question, see what you come up with. I mean, you might have to cut departments, you might have to do renegotiate contracts, you might do any number of things. But pretend you couldn't raise our taxes. Would you want to close down?
The whole point when we started out with is not pretending. The whole object is that we do not want to. And that is the whole reason that we are scrutinizing everything, and if you think about it, when's the last time your taxes were raised?
Well, we got a big shock when we got our garbage thing that was raised up.
Well, but that was an added.
It's still our taxes, it's an itemized thing. It still gets us in the pocketbook, and if we don't pay it, our property goes up, for confiscation.
But that was like an added attraction, so to speak.
Right.
But when
still,
we have
pocket,
I understand, but when we've gone for the last, say, 5 years, and our budget has been balanced from our reserve, it's like you paying your own personal home expenses out of your savings account and not putting anything back in your savings account.
I understand we're going to borrow time.
So but I will tell you now that we are scrutinizing and there is full cooperation with everyone in this town to do everything possible to make this budget the skinniest, best budget that there is.
But you still have the taxpayer to default back to. If you can't make we're still the default.
That's correct.
And if we didn't have this, would you want to still exist? Suppose for some reason you couldn't, by law, you couldn't take any more money from us. Would you want to still exist?
Then we would continue to reduce services, so
would you consider doing that?
Well, we are considering that.
To the point where you don't have to raise our taxes, because, like Roy said, this town is broke. You got people they just come out with a Social Security thing where they're not going to give a boost to the poor people on fixed income. They can't afford anything.
Neither can any of us here.
And you have to remember, there's costs. We have to plow the roads. We have other departments. There's services and goods that the people of the community need and want. So we have to balance that with what our department has.
Plowing roads is a vital thing. The sewer system is a vital thing. There's other things that if they weren't there, a lot of people would never miss them.
Well, I'll tell you what, when the budget is proposed and they're not there, then you will find out how many people miss them. Because
it won't be as many as that squawk at you for raising their taxes. It won't be even close to that.
I hope so.
That's what happens.
I really hope that that's the case.
That's what happens. You get a special interest group. They can pack the room here, whatever it is. They'll pack the room, make it look big, and then everybody has to pay for it because they squeeze you.
There's no squeezing because we don't have it.
Well, if you raise our taxes and you squeeze us,
I also pay taxes in this town, and everything is being done in the best interest. So
I know.
Allow us to go forward with this, and we will be having a public hearing, and you'll have an opportunity then to stand up again.
I hope that you plan to attend the public hearing, but
you mean for the budget?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What time is it? when is
We
it?
haven't come to that yet. It'll be in,
Yeah.
it'll be.
But you're not, it's-
There's a budget workshop next Wednesday at 4 o'clock. You're not supposed to comment
Well,
at
it's
those, but
just
you
to
know,
listen.
but you can listen. And then there is the hearing, which was set for the 27th, and then there's one on the Saturday morning. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity, you know, to have input into that, okay? But one of the things that's going up, Chief said he reduced his budget for next year by 3%. I think that's what
we need
he
bigger,
said.
we need bigger cuts than that.
And, and,
3% isn't
You know-
gonna happen. They're getting what?
okay, but let me finish, okay? So it's not that the spending is going up, you know, it's that there are other expenses, collective bargaining expenses, okay? Like health insurance, and that's a big one.
That's another thing, that's putting the floor under your expenses, that's gonna drive you, that drove GM into bankruptcy.
Well, agreed, you know, but we're stuck with contracts that we didn't
They can
pay.
be reopened, and reopened, they
Well,
can be,
I've
in
lost
this labor
that.
market, if
I've lost that argument, they can't be reopened, I'm told, so. You know,
Anything-
we have a
anything
couple
can be-
other contracts that are coming up for negotiation, and, you know, the contract that's not up for negotiation is a very generous contract, you know, and everyone else would like to emulate that contract, you know, but it's pretty tough to beat an average of 4% per year for 4 years, for example. It's pretty generous, you know, not to have to pay into your health insurance, for example. And that's what we have to deal with right now.
Yeah.
So we don't pay, you know, some of the employees don't pay for health insurance, but then other employees do, so that's not fair. So the department heads remind us, you know, well, that causes divisiveness when there are those discrepancies, you know, from one group of employees to another, and I agree. However, we can't afford, you know, those costs.
no, you can't. It's either a question of they make concessions or they don't have a job anymore. That's what it's going to be.
Well,
Not
you know,
because, that's
we're gonna have to consider layoffs. Ed, okay?
because the cost of these benefits are over half of their pay now.
Well, we realize that, that's what we're dealing with.
All right, thank you.
The wing job open for you.
Not at 2 in the morning.